Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Garavavai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vitvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapiyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Narshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramartanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Nine imbibes a lot of the bhakti sadhanas, and that's what we're going to be seeing today. And so Chapter 9 starts beautifully with this understanding of, deeper understanding of who Bhagwan really is. And so here we see from chapter 7 onwards, there's this greater understanding or description of Bhagwan. From chapter 1 to 6, it's more about doing. Karma yoga is doing, yagnas are doing, and even meditation is doing. And then in meditation, what are we meant to be meditating on? When we came to chapter 6, we have to know what to focus the mind on. So how to see Bhagwan, how to worship Bhagwan. And so really, bhakti can only work the more we know and understand this divinity. If we think about any relationship in our life, even sometimes parents will get so anxious that, the kid is doing this and I don't know why they're doing this and I keep telling them but they're not listening. And then something comes to light. Maybe some situation comes to light in school and that's why they're behaving away. Or sometimes it's a diagnosis. Maybe there's a health issue or maybe there's a... and then you think, And then the minute we know what was wrong, it's like half the problem is solved. Because we know, we understand, and now we know how to deal with. And this is just with any person. Even sometimes they're saying something, and we're not understanding what they're trying to say by it because the words mean this, but they're not satisfied with me responding to the words. And then finally what they really meant by it was expressing a certain emotion or expressing a certain fear or expressing a certain desire. And now, okay, now that I've understood, that relationship becomes easier and potentially closer. The more we understand someone, the stronger the relationship is. And in fact, that's how we would describe relationships. Like we'll say, oh, we're really close. This person's like a sister to me, meaning that And even other people will describe the closeness of a relationship by, they finish each other's sentences. And that's indicating that they have such a good understanding of each other and they have such a strong rapport. And so the closer we feel to a person, the more we feel we've understood them, the more we feel they've understood me, and therefore there's feeling of close. And when there's constant misunderstandings, then the relationship is strained. So bhakti, essentially what is bhakti? Bhakti is my relationship with Bhagwan. And it has to be a relationship. Then only it's bhakti. Bhakti, of course, translates to love, but love has a direction in the way that we love. Of course, love can be a principle, but usually when you and I think of love, it's love who? Or love what? Right? If I just say I love, you'll say that's an incomplete sentence. And so usually we think in terms of the way everyday thinking, love has a direction, and bhakti is that love being directed to Bhagwan. And then the more I feel I know Bhagwan, only then can I truly love. And so in chapter 7, it's as though an introduction is started. Sri Krishna is saying, this is me. Even like when we go on dates, not that I've ever been on a date, but then you get to know the person by talking about yourself, and then they talk about themselves, then you talk about yourself, and then you talk about your experiences and your opinions, and that's how you get to know each other more. So here too, as though Bhagwan is telling us, let me tell you a little bit about me. And so that started in chapter 7. In chapter 10, there was a slight detour. 8. Because he talks more about kalpas and creations and things like that. And then chapter 9, he comes back to this explanation of, this is me. In chapter 10, further, how you recognize me in the world around. In chapter 11, me in my entirety, Vishwarupa Darshan. And chapter 12, how Santa Mahatma, when they come to know me, what is their experience? And so that's that journey of the Bhagwan talking about himself in terms of chapter 7 to chapter 12. And so here we saw, I am, they are in me, I am not in them, they are not in me, I am the substratum allowing all of creation to happen. And then yesterday's verses we saw that all of creation what's the word? Spins forth. Emanates is a good word, yes. Is propelled, yes. The sense given in chapter 9 is more this like vastness, but see, I'm not finding the right word. There's the Bhagwan does this. Like a fisherman throwing out the net, or like a magician showing the ta-da, or it's like there's just the sudden all of creation, maybe an unveiling, all of creation in one go is thrown out. Yeah, there is an openness, I know, because my hands are like this, you're all thinking openness, but I think it's the whole, like it's coming from me, and then there's so much there, but it's all first come from me. And so who am I? I am the one that creates all the worlds that exist. And now, there's a little bit of a pause on who I am, and it's more of this relationship. These next few verses are really focusing more on that. How to create that relationship? How do people connect with me? How do people think about me? And how do people come to know me better? All these are answered now in the next few verses. But we paused at that point where Bhagwan was talking about those who deny my existence. Then they fall into this spiral of indulgence and this kind of meaninglessness. And the word used is vain in this. it's like a waste, like a sense of emptiness is the word that comes to mind. That, when we deny the existence of all that is beautiful and virtuous and good and divine, then we ourselves end up feeling this incredible emptiness. When we get lost, even if we believe in Bhagwan, but we've not nurtured that relationship, and we ourselves get distracted and lost, and maybe it's with some particular problem that has come up and it's taken up my whole attention, or some relationship and I'm highly infatuated, or it's a desire has taken over me and now I am full-fledged trying to pursue that desire, and so I neglect nurturing my relationship with Bhagwan, and I feel that loss of that relationship in my life. Just like if I stopped and neglected another relationship, a spouse or a sibling, and then you think, where are they? I'm not feeling close, I'm not feeling connected. And for someone who doesn't even acknowledge the relationship altogether, then that void is so much more of that feeling of empty. Because that divinity it's within us. And so to deny it is denying a part of us. And so there will be a sense of conflict within us. And there will be a sense of disorientation or unease. And then the opposite of that now is being described, and we can do verse number 13 and 14 together. Yes? Everyone found it? Mahatmanastu mam partha. Not only acknowledge, but the word here is worship. Bhajante. Bhajante, we often hear in terms of bhajan as we think it is singing, but the word bhajante means to worship. And the word worship also is not as well understood, because again it gets used far too casually. So we're going to come back to bhajante. And how is this bhajante done? Of course, with the more strong our relationship to Bhagwan is, then this bhajante is with single pointedness. Na anya manasa. There's no otherness in my thinking. The mind is single pointed. Gyatva bhutadim avyayam. Then I come to know the truth. So the truth is there, and the more I single pointedly focus on that truth, I come to know the truth. And so what is bhajante? What is to worship? Okay, you all tell me first. What is to worship? To be single-pointed. But we can be single-pointed in making money. Single-pointed in losing weight. Wow, I have seen people so single-pointed in losing weight. I've never seen such single-pointedness.
Worship is like connection with remembering your Bhagwan.
Connection, remembering. Yep. Surrender and praising. Nice. Chanting. All of y'all are correct. But worship has the sense of awe and reverence. So the automated behavior of worship is this bowing down, the sense of humility. And you would have experienced when you automatically have this feeling sometimes. And I'm sure when you go to a temple, it's almost subconscious and you just bow. Okay? But sometimes even in a conversation, maybe somebody is praising you, and it's too much praise. And you feel this need to bow. I don't know if you've experienced this. Yeah. Or sometimes we see something and it's so beautiful, often in nature. Like I remember the first time I saw the Himalayas and Gangaji flowing, and the mind just goes really still. Just when something's just so incredibly beautiful. And people say this about any spot in the world, right? Of course, for me it was Himalayas, but I've heard people say it about the Barrier Reef or the Grand Canyon or the Swiss Alps just because it's so incredibly beautiful that the mind goes very, very still, and there's the sense of, I am small. Not in a bad way, but in a very enlightening, like this beauty is so vast, or this, or this power is so vast. And so worship is when I see it as higher. Yeah. And there is reverence. Yeah. So we all know Bhagavan is higher. But we're not necessarily feeling it. And then sometimes something's going on in our life, and then our friend will start giving advice about, you should have more faith, Bhagavan is there. Yeah, I know Bhagavan is there. Like, don't tell me. But then that's not worship, right? That feeling is not there. Yeah. But there'll be times when that feeling is so strong that he's there. And recently a young girl, she would be like 16 or something, very cute. She, her mom called and said, she wants to speak to you privately. And I thought, oh. And in my head, I'm already guessing, did she find, boy, she's too stressed about school, friends are bullying her, what's happened? She wants to speak to me privately. And then she says to me, I'm not feeling connected with God anymore. And I thought, I wasn't expecting this. Like, shame on me that I would think that she would talk about something else when what she came to talk to me was she wasn't feeling connected to God anymore. And I said, okay, tell me more. So she asked Bhagavan for something, and it didn't happen. Then she asked again, and it didn't happen. So, he's obviously neglecting her. So I said, true. Let's give him a mindful now, shall we? And then it was really interesting because we kept talking, and then at one point she said, he didn't answer my prayer. And I said, of course he answered. No, he didn't answer. I said, he did. He said no. And she stopped. We were walking. I do my steps. Anyone who knows me, I keep walking up and down. And she stopped walking. And she looked at me. And I was 2 steps ahead, and I had to stop and look back at her. And he said no. I said, yeah, you didn't get it, right? That's a no. Oh. But no's an answer. Yeah. And then we kept walking. And then so many things about how when her sister asks her something, she says no. When her mother asks her something, she says no. And how we all do it, and it's perfectly fine. Why do we always have to say yes? And why does Bhagavan always have to say yes? And by the end of it, she was giggling so cutely. And she said, this was the sweetest part. But will he accept me back now? Because I didn't believe him for a while. So genuine, so sincere, and of course He'll accept us back. Right? Like, of course He'd accept us back. Like, He didn't notice you went far. For Him, you were still close. And so, bhajante is when it's important to us. Right? When we feel it's important enough that she came to talk to me about it. And important enough that to feel He's so real that will He accept me back? Like, now does He feel bad that I tantrumed? Like, now He's used to it. Because He's so used to our tantruming. Bhajante is when we recognize how important Bhagwan is. And there can still be familiarity in the relationship. He's mine. But just like with our mums or our dads, we can be so familiar with them, but we know how important that relationship is in our life. Not when we're young, but now as adults, we know how important it is. So bhajante is that sense of value. It has to be that there's a sense of value in this presence, energy, form that I am worshipping. And there's also a sense of adore. Adore is not always easy to explain, but the best example I can give you is grandparent with grandchild. Adore. Like, there's just no room for any, they'll just go on and on about the virtues of this child. And then the child will have virtues, no doubt, but the grandparent overinflates because there's just so much love. It's overflowing out of them. What's bhajante? When we adore. And that's why it was the gopis, just totally besotted with Krishna. It's that complete adore. That Parvati ji doing tapas because of that, pining to be with Shivji. Or, even Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and that absolute surrender to Mother Kali. And where other people would see her form as fierce, he saw only compassion and he only saw Ma. That complete adore. And so, am I worshipping? It's not the action that determines that I'm worshipping. It's the understanding of the importance, and it's that sense of adoring, which you can't artificially create. And if I don't have that, then the actions do help because of outside in, right? Sometimes the mind doesn't have the mood, but if you keep doing the action, then it creates the mood within the mind. And then sometimes the mind already has that mood, and then the actions flow so easily. And then that's the other very important thing about devotion that we must remember, that emotions cannot be sustained. Any emotion, they rise and they fall and they rise and they fall. And so this sense of pining and this sense of adoring, there will be gaps when we don't feel it. And when we don't feel it, sometimes we miss it. Like, where is it? Where is it? And then all these actions and all these sadhanas that are being said here now in the next verse is what helps us to connect to it. And so the first one was glorifying me, satatam kirtayanto mam. Kirtanam is to glorify. Kirtanam, again, we think is singing, but it's not singing, it's praising. And so today we use words slightly different. Today, Kirtanam is when we sing the different names of Bhagwan. But actually, those names are also glorifying. If we know what that name means, it's glorifying. And the Sanskrit names have such depth of meaning. So even like at any single one, even Krishna, and it's one who scrapes away our sorrow. And so it's to glorify. And then when we're talking about him, it's his beauty, so glorifying. It's his wisdom, it's his strength, it's its compassion. To glorify is not just speech, because here it's saying satatam. You can't be speaking all the time. So to glorify is to, like I said, bhajante, hold it in a place of value, but also to live a life that is glorifying too. And it's sad that I have to give an example of another culture. I wish I could give examples of our culture. But like if you say Japan, then already all of us have a sense of what's the thing you associate with it? Discipline. Anything else? Cleanliness. And good quality. Right? Now imagine for Japan to have that connotation, everyone has to behave in that way. So what's Kirtayan? If I am a devotee of Krishna, I should behave in a way that is glorifying and befitting and raising the standard of what people think of Krishna. If I am Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda's disciple, I should behave in a way that then they see or they hear or they interact with, they'll say, yes, this is Chinmaya standards. So there's this kirtanam is to live a life where my life is glorifying that whom or what I value. And we'll see it. We'll see it in organizations, in companies, in communities. And of course there's exception to the rules, but there's a general norm. And again, if I say Germany, you'll think something. If I say Jew, you'll think something. And sometimes even specific companies, if I say Google, you'll think something. Because so well known for that quality. What's the quality Krishna is known for? What's the quality Shiva mischief? What's the quality Shiva is known for? What's the quality your Guru is known for? Are we imbibing and glorifying that quality? So Kirtanam is not just speech, it's the way I live my life. And then Yatanto, striving. And that glorifying of Bhagwan is so that I am striving to be more like Bhagwan. And then Dridavataha is firm in my vows. So when we think vows, it's not like I make a vow, but in the moment I understand something to be valuable, it's already, am I firm in living those values? So the worst thing we do, all of us, is when we say, I know I should. And already you know what the next word is going to be. And that's the worst thing we do. And it can be about health. So the time you'll hear me say it is, I know I should sleep early. But people will say it about so many things. I know I shouldn't get angry. I know I should come for satsang. I know I should be more attentive to the children. I know I should pay more attention. I know so many things we say it for. This is not dhrida vritaha. It means the mind is torn. The should followed by a but means mind is torn. Dhrida vrataha means I am strong. You will not be able to shake me. Like if you are vegetarian and then somebody says, but there's only little bit meat in it, you can eat it. I didn't put much. Will you eat it? Or somebody will say, oh, there's nothing else. Never mind, just pick out the vegetables from it and eat it. Will you eat it? Some might. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's wrong if you do. But somebody who won't eat it. Yeah. Some of our youth group, when they had gone traveling to said Japan, couldn't find vegetarian and ate plain rice for 2 days. Dhrida. And you wouldn't even, if you can't find anything else, you eat plain rice, right? If everything else has meat, that's what you're going to eat, plain rice. And bread, it had eggs, cannot eat. Put some sauce, has fish paste, cannot eat. They are fine eating plain rice because dhrida. You, if you are vegetarian, you would be too. Or, never mind vegetarian for spiritual reasons. Doctor has said, don't eat. Then also we become dhrida? Not always, potentially. But if you are in severe discomfort because of the illness, you will be dhrida. If you're not in severe discomfort from the illness, you won't be dhrida. Dhrida means firm. I believe it, I value it, then I stay true to it. And what am I dhrida on here? My relationship to Bhagwan comes first. This bit we don't like. Let me have relationship with him, that's enough, right? Why does it have to come first? Why does it have to come first? You tell me, why does it have to come first? Last life. Were your parents your parents? Don't know. They could have been my enemy. That's why I'm born to them this life, so they can torture me. Some people might say that. I wouldn't say it. I'm very, very blessed with beautiful parents. But we don't know who they were last life. Your children were your children last life? And your spouse was your spouse last life? But Bhagwan was Bhagwan last life. In so many lifetimes that you have lived, which has been your one constant relationship? And when this lifetime ends, it will at some point, which is the only relationship that I'll still have. Comes first. You know that saying in Hindi, "Ghar ka murgi." Bhagwan will be there, no? He's not going to reject me. So, since he'll just be there, what do? Go off. Get involved with samsar. Get involved with kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. What are all those names? Desire, greed, anger, jealousy. And then so many more that are not in that list. Guilt, regret. Years we can spend being guilty and regretting. Dhridavrataha. Bhagwan is there no matter what. So instead of taking for granted, give that the most importance, because that's going to be the one that's going to be there no matter what. Others may love me. In Bhaja Govindam it says that, when we lose our usefulness, people leave. They don't want to talk to us anymore. And then we'll say, no, my children are so nice, they look after me. Very good, your children are so nice. Yeah. But can they always be there? In COVID, could we always be there? Even when we wanted to be there, could we be there? Not that they don't love us, but doesn't mean they can be there. And sometimes they're there. But let's say I have some very complicated health issue, and so this person loves me so dearly and they're standing next to me, but as confused I am about what to do about my medical issue, they confused as to what to do without my... They can't really help. Even when they did, sometimes they can't really help. Or when we lose someone we love and another loved one is trying to console us, and then we get so irritated, leave me alone. Let me just grieve. And they're trying so hard to be there. But this relationship, this one relationship, it never falters. And it's been there for lifetimes, and even after moksha, this relationship is there. Every other relationship, time eats away. So, love never dies. So not to be very pessimistic or what's the word? Not to seem that it's a horrible situation. When we love continues. But the relationship may not, because the person may not. And because that's not in our hands. Yeah. So, here, Dhridavrataha. Satatam kirtayanto mam, to praise them with our every breath and to stay firm in investing in this relationship. Namasyanto. Namasyanto is to bow down. This, like I said, what does bhajanti mean? Bhajanti means, I want to bow down. And there's this incredible feeling of gratitude. And so I lower my head, but it's not a physical action. And actually when we lower our heads, when we bow down, there's an opening of our heart. It's not a physical, because of course when we bow down, everything contracts physically. But spiritually and emotionally, we know this. When we bow down, our hearts open. And there's this immense sense of gratitude. And sometimes in this bowing down, there's this surrender. There's this complete understanding of, there's only so much I can do. And so the rest, I surrender. And actually I have to surrender, but we're not convinced we have to surrender, and so we don't. We hold on and we fight. But the moment we understand, everything goes better if I surrender. And the surrender is not a helplessness, but a surrender is I've done my very best now, and so now, here, you take. Because I've totally understood now, there's nothing more I can do. And so Namaskuru is this filled with gratitude, this filled with surrender. Remember, this list is how bhakti gets practiced, but also how bhakti gets cultivated within our hearts. And then Nitya Yukta Upasate. And when we continuously think in this way, Yukta means we are united. This worship unites us continuously to that divine. And so we see here he's not talking so much about who he is so much anymore, but how we can relate to him. And that's why I started with saying chapter 9 is really so beautiful in terms of understanding bhakti. In verse number 15, Gyana Yagnena Chapyanye Yatanto Mamupasate. Somebody was telling me this is their favorite verse. Probably because it talks about Gyana Yagnena. How to worship? Then Gyana Yagna. What is Gyana Yagna? The sacrificing of ignorance into the fire of knowledge. And maybe it's this person's favorite verse because Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda, used this to describe the series of talks that he would do. It was always a Gyana Yagna. And it's a Yagna only when lots of people come together. It can be a Yagna if it's just me striving on my own, but usually a Yagna is when lots of people come together. And when one of us individually is trying to change, it's so much more of a battle than if we just all collectively walking towards that same goal. Like sometimes even in the house, let's say there has to be a dietary change, and if it's only you, then you keep getting tempted by everything. But if the whole household changes and is eating that way, then it's so easy for you, you don't have to think about it. So collective wave is always easier. Even you'll notice like sometimes in a sports stadium when there's this excitement for the team and you're not even, I think I've given this example very often. I attended one cricket match in my whole life because I'm really not that interested. I lived in Australia and they love cricket, and I'm Indian and they love cricket, but I'm not getting what the fuss is at all. But I got dragged to one cricket match. And really, even though the game is so boring, the crowd is so exciting. And they get so, psyched up and they're cheering and and what was more, I totally got into the vibe of how the crowd was getting so excited about it, especially towards the end of the game when you were saying. But what was even more surprising to me was I had this very timid cousin who was, very conservative and very shy, and at the end of the game, when we were winning, and he was actually cheering for the opposite team, but then afterwards he switched because Australia was winning, he jumped on the chair and started shouting the chant. And I thought, wow. When there's a collective spirit, it's so much easier to feel and to ride that wave. So Yagna is if we could all come together and change our understanding. Because it's Gyana Yagna. And today it gets done in the opposite way. Today it's not Gyana Yagna. Today some Instagram reel will get made and then the whole world is talking about whatever that company wanted you to be talking about. And they have collectively changed the psyche of the whole world using all these small clips. And then we just repeat what we hear because it gets forwarded and it gets played and so our way of thinking is constantly getting changed. But the way in which our thinking will uplift us has already been given from the beginning of time. It's already here. The guidance we needed was already here. And so clear and so reliable. And so when we collectively come together to imbibe this knowledge, and the word has to be imbibe, not know, because we can quote to each other and we can advise each other, and then that makes no difference. Because just like you don't like to be lectured at, nobody else likes to be lectured at, and so if you say da 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 da, and then we're looking at them, and then what do? You should talk. And then we're so judgmental about whatever, whoever they are in their relationships. But it doesn't matter who they are. And it doesn't matter what they're saying. What matters? Who you are. Please note, it doesn't matter what you say. Because without saying a word, each one of us say plenty. Like this sweet 16-year-old who came to talk to me, many of them come to the ashram. And then sometimes they will ask me, but it's okay, right? Sometimes if we, and they'll give some example of something that they want to do, and I'll be quiet. You have to follow your heart, sweetheart. I know you're going to say it's wrong. But just for a little while, just let me experience everything. Shouldn't we experience everything? Follow your heart, sweetheart. And I'll just keep repeating this. And I don't have to give any advice whatsoever, In trying to fight me to prove their point, they'll say everything that I have to, or I would have normally said. But they're saying it. I'm not saying it. Without saying a word, the way we live our life already talks volumes. And so Gyana Yagna is not me knowing and quoting. It's me living. You know, there's people who know all 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita by heart. In fact, many Swamis in the Chinmaya mission, you just ask them chapter 17, verse 3, like this they'll tell you. Not only Swamis in the mission, there's Balvihar kids in America who can play Antakshari with Gita verses. I want to hide under the table sometimes when I see these kids. They play Antakshari with Gita verses. That's how well they know the Gita. And then there's this beautiful story of a Krishna devotee who thinks he must read the Gita because Krishna wrote the Gita and he loves Krishna so much that how can he not read the Gita? Because it's Krishna's words. You know, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, it's Krishna's words. And so he takes the Bhagavad Gita and he starts from chapter 1, verse 1. And chapter 1, verse 1 is not even Krishna talking, it's Dhritarashtra, Sanjaya saying what Dhritarashtra said, and then verse 2, verse 3, and then when he gets to verse 14, his eyes tear, and he becomes so overwhelmed that he can't read further. Verse 14 of chapter 1 is where it's described how Krishna is sitting on the chariot with white horses and he enters the battlefield. And it's a description of the chariot, it's the description of the horses, and it's a description of Krishna standing on the chariot with Arjuna. But this devotee, reading that verse, thinks, Krishna. And so overwhelmed that Krishna's come that he can't read any further. And then feels very ashamed that he hasn't read the Gita. He's understood it better than some of those people who have memorized 700 verses. It's not knowing and quoting. It's knowing and being. It's doing and following the words that Krishna said. And what did he say? Love me, surrender to me. And he didn't even read that, but already seeing Krishna, so much love, so much surrender. Gyana Yagna is when I become. Kirtayanto is when I live that life where I become. Yajanto mam upasate. I sacrifice my ignorance. That's what Gyana Yagna is. So that I understand. Ekatvena pratekvena. Bhagavan doesn't have one form. Bhagavan has many, many forms. Bahuda vishwato mukhaha. All these different shapes, all these different forms, they are all just reflections of divinity. Here again, Pujya Gurudev's commentary is so elaborate on this part of the verse, that Bhagavan can be seen in so many different ways. And you know, it's in Hinduism, this is so ingrained in our thinking, that many parts, but it's all the same. And so we will sing bhajans where we say Ishwar Allah. So what's the rest of the line? I forgot it. Sabako sammati de. Yeah. We won't differentiate as Hindus. Because Gita is very clear. Bhagavan takes different forms. He took every form possible. You name it. Bhagavan's come as a turtle. He's come as a pig. Like, how much more does he have to do to show us? He can be absolutely anything and everything. And in Hinduism, we worship trees. And, you know, today, now we celebrate Earth Day. Because we should respect the planet more. But then they look down at us for worshipping trees. If you worship trees, you don't need Earth Day. You already did it. We worship Gomaya. We worship Ganga Maya. Animals, rivers, mountains, plants. It's not Ishwar Allah. Like, it's not so narrow. Can't see it as that. When Bhagavan says, I take so many forms, we have to see it as so many forms. All creatures, plants, and then no form. And so in the Vedic period, Bhagavan was worshipped as the elements, fire, space, earth. And if you go to Bali, it's one of the few places where Bhagavan is worshipped, no form. Their altar is empty. Because whatever you see there is already Bhagavan. How cool is that? If the altar is in front of a tree, then the tree you're seeing is Bhagavan only. I don't have to put a form. If the altar is showing you the street is Bhagavan only. I don't have to put a form. If the altar is showing you the sky and the clouds, that's Bhagavan only. You don't have to put a form. Very few places in India where you'll see this, but there are. There are in the yatras. I forget which one. There are a few of the yatras in the Himalayas where you go and the deity is space, air, water, Fire. Earth. And sometimes some murti is also put there, but the understanding is that the deity is the elements. Why? Because Bhagavan is every form. And that's why earlier he said, they are in me. All forms are in me. I am all forms. Creation, all of it comes from me. And so choose any form and slowly start to see him in all forms. And if there's already something there and it doesn't belong to our tradition, what did Hinduism do? Take it. Now I'll give you another example, not religion, but I'm Gujarati. And so in Gujarat, the Parsis came to live. And they made tea with lemongrass. So then we also made tea with lemongrass. But before Parsis came, we put ginger and elaichi. So now we added the lemongrass. And then somebody went to Arab side and they made tea with mint. So when they came back to Gujarat, they put mint in their tea. But you kept the lemongrass and we kept the elaichi and we kept the ginger. Gujarati tea is awesome, I tell you. If there was any other path and they did it differently, no problem, we'll also take that. Now it applied to chai, but it applied to our practices also. If somebody worshipped in some particular way, we can worship in that way as well. But we never let go of what we already had. Because what we already had has immense wisdom without us realizing. You know the Pancha Amrit that we use in doing puja, of course now today the world has changed and chemicals and this thing and that thing, but it was ghee, yogurt, honey, milk, water. Now today, if you go back to Vedic period, your honey has so many medicinal properties. Your dahi had all your probiotics and all the rest of it. Your, ghee, all your good fat and all the rest of it in it. And milk, water. So actually when you did the puja and then you drank the Panchamrit, that was your vitamin pill. Do puja every day, drink the prasad. You don't need to take full vitamins from different boxes. It was all there. The world has changed. Milk is different, yogurt is different, ghee is different. But that was so much wisdom already there. And so we don't let go of the wealth that we already had, but understanding that divinity is every form, acceptance of every form. Now Bhagavan says, I'm going too slow today. Aham kritar aham yagna swadhyaham aham. This verse is so profound. Aham krita. I am sacrifice. So I am the very worship ceremony. Aham yagna. Aham swadhya. Swadhya is what we put into the fire. Aham, the mantras that we chant as we do it. Aham, agyam, the ghee that we pour into the fire. Aham, agni, the fire that is there. And this verse, for those of you who have already studied the Gita, is an echo of the 4th chapter, the verse we use when we eat our food. It's the meal prayer. In chapter 4, I think it's verse number 24, where it says, Brahmarpanam Brahmavir Brahmagno Brahmanautam Brahmeva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. This verse is exactly the same. But instead of saying Brahmarpanam, Brahma is the Yagna, Krishna here is saying, Aham. I am the Yagna. I am the fire. I am the offering. I am the ghee. I am. In Brahmarpanam, it's I'm the spoon that you use to make the offering. In Havan, because the fire is so hot, that spoon's very long. And then, so it's a separate name. In this verse, he doesn't refer to the instruments being used, but every other aspect of the yagna. And so if you think of our Havan, then this is what Krishna is saying. Krishna is saying, me. I am the ceremony, all of it put together. I am the Havan Kund. I am the fire burning. I am whatever you are offering into it. I am the one making the offering. I am the mantras being chanted as the offerings are being made. Essentially, he's saying, everything is in me. I am everything. I am everyone. When we think of puja, when we think of worship, and if we think, I am worshipping Krishna, then there's still this feeling of little bit separateness. Now this is one more of those verses. Remember I said every now and then as a parent we tell in advance what the kids should learn later on, even if they're not ready for it now. This is one of those verses. So there's this beautiful story of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. You know, there was this phase where Kali Mata was considered to be tantric, and so people were very judgmental of anyone worshipping Kali because you are doing tantra, and tantra had gotten an unpleasant reputation. Although actually tantra is a beautiful path, and many of the arti that we do is tantra. So there's nothing wrong. And then the mudras we use, but of course when it gets misused, and then when people don't understand that it's a misunderstanding and a misuse of something, then the whole name of that thing gets spoiled. And so there was this period where you couldn't say you were a Kali upasak. Upasak means somebody who worshipped Kali. You couldn't say it because you got terribly, terribly judged as being somebody who's tantric and they're not spiritual and corrupted and all of that. And Paramahamsa Ji adored Kali. And he couldn't not worship her. And so he would hide and do puja for Mother Kali. And now and sometimes when it's a secret relationship and then it builds even more of that connection and that value and that importance and so he would get so lost in worshipping. And so in a puja ceremony, and I'm sure we've done it here in the temple as well, we take the flowers, we hold it to our heart, we say Bhagwan's name, and then we offer the flowers to Bhagwan. And it's usually Bhagwan's name and ends with Namaha. So Om, name, Namaha, Om, name, Namaha, Om, name. And so he's doing this for Mother Kali. He's worshipping and he's throwing the flowers on Mother Kali as he's saying her name, and then he's so lost that he takes the flowers and he's putting it on his head. and his eyes are closed and he has no idea that he's putting it on his head. But in that feeling of love and devotion to Kali, suddenly there's no separateness. It's no more Ma there and me here, and there's just Ma and there's only her presence, and so the flowers are being put on himself. And so right now, maybe we don't see the oneness of it all. Maybe we're still at the stage where we are with reverence, with love, with desire to improve. We are still offering the flowers to someone who we consider to be separate to me. But ultimately, if that love continues and it purifies our minds, we get to this point where we no longer feel separateness. And this is the truth. The separateness is a feeling, but the oneness is truth. Even if we're not able to hold the oneness, even if we just experience it fleetingly and then come back to feeling separate, the feeling of oneness is truth. The feeling of separateness is just me not completely surrendering yet. And the more I surrender, the more I'll experience that oneness. But in our heart, some desire will pop up, and then I'm separate, and I'm saying, Bhagwan, please help me fulfill this desire. Or some fear pops up, which is also desire only, and then Bhagwan, save me from this fear. And then that creates that separateness. And that not wanting to let go completely of this is me. But the more we surrender it, the more we experience divinity and divinity alone. This verse is so incredibly beautiful. And in the chapter 9, Gurudev's mentioned to refer back to chapter 4 for a deeper explanation. But if you can, watch Gurudev's videos. He explains it elaborately in his videos. And so entertainingly, he does this beautiful story, which I'm not going to tell you. You have to go watch Gurudev. We will read the next verse. Pitamahasya Jagata And so here he goes back to explaining who he is. I am. So first he explained, I am everything, and here now, Pitamahasya Jagataha. I am the father of this world. Mata Data Pitamaha. I am also the mother of this world and the grandfather of this world. So Gurudev says, if you say he's the father of the world, then some clever kid in the Balvihar class will say, who's the mother? So he's already said, I'm the mother. And then who's his father? I'm the grandfather. Veda Pavitram Omkaraha. This is a section verse which I don't think I'm going to be able to go into. I am the Vedas and Omkar. Omkar is also explained in chapter 8. It's mentioned here again now, and it will be mentioned again in chapter 17. And this one word Om here, Pavitra, it purifies. And the volumes that can be spoken just on this one word Om. I have a book on my bookshelf that's this thick, all on the explanation of Om. There's no time to tell you. whoever's coming next to Jakarta, they can talk on the beauty and the power of Om. I am Rik, Sama, and Yajur Vedaha. So this is Bhagavan saying who he is. We're just going to focus on, I am the father of the universe, I am the mother of the universe, and I am the grandfather. Now why father and grandfather? Because whenever we say father, then we think further. Because it's cause and effect. So what was the cause? Bhagavan. Then what caused Bhagavan? And it's a very intuitive question. Without fail, every Balvihar kid will ask it if they're thinking and paying attention. Who's God's father? Because we all have a father, and then our fathers have fathers, and their fathers have fathers, so God must also have a father. And then to cater for that, we have Krishna. And he has Nanda Baba as his father, so kids can relate. And Vasudeva as his father. And there's beautiful books to depict those stories where you can relate to him as someone who's a kid like me, who has a father and a mother. But that's when Bhagavan takes form. But essence of Bhagavan is without form. And so how can form have without form have? There's no cause needed. And saying I am the father and the grandfather is just saying now there's no other cause. I am the causeless cause. Then this argument in logic, like what's the cause, what's the cause, what's the cause, is referred to as infinite regress. There's just no end to when was the beginning. Even earlier Bhagavan said, I throw forth the worlds. And there's pralaya, and then there's creation, and then there's pralaya, and there's creation. And every single seeker on the path at some point in time will ask, when was the first creation and why? Why did Bhagavan create it? And when was the first desire? And when was the first vasana? And when was the first karma? Why did that first even start? Every single seeker will ask that question. And no answer is satisfactory. The answer that will be given is there's no first. Bhagavan is the causeless cause and existed before time existed. And so if Bhagavan existed before time existed, then of course first comes way after, because Bhagavan existed, time existed, and then first. And for some people this will be an okay answer, and for some people they'll be like, no. But why? When was the first and why was the first? This is Maya. Because it doesn't matter. When a problem is created, and already it's created, it doesn't matter why. It only matters now that we solve it. If I'm lost, what does it matter why? Or how? Sure, we can learn not to do it again. Learn not to do it again. What matters is, I find my way back. When I find my way back to Bhagavan, when you find your way back to Bhagavan, you ask him, why? But getting stuck on the why now and not progressing is a trick that the mind plays to make us stay bound. So here, Krishna says, I am the father, I am the grandfather. There's no other cause, there's just me. And I am the mother. There's no other cause, there is just me. And here there's so many beautiful stories of Bhagavan being the creator of this whole world. But actually, one of my favorites is Mother more than father. Often, actually Krishna is saying I am the father, but more often than not, Shiva is seen as the father of the universe and Parvati Ji as the mother. I mean, there's no hard and fast. Lakshmi is also Mother Earth and Bhagwan Vishnu is also father, but usually it's Shivji that gets seen to be the father of the universe. And so there's this story that Mother Parvati Ji and Shivji were playing a board game. So they were rolling dice and they were playing some game. And we don't know exactly who was cheating or if it was actually cheating, but Parvati Ji definitely won at one point. And then Shivji said, no, 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 no. We have to do a do-over of this game because whatever reason. And so Parvati Ji said, okay, we'll do over. And then Shivji won. But she suspected, And then Shivji's gunas, Nandi and all the Bhuta Pisach, all start taking Shivji's side and ganging up against Mother Parvati. And she said, it was just a game. Why are you making such a big deal of it? It's okay if you lose. It's not like it's a big deal. And so he said, no, of course I didn't lose. The whole world depends only on me. And everything else is an illusion, which is true. So she said, you can't say that because then even food is an illusion and I'm an illusion. So take it back. And he said, no. And so then she said, fine, then I'll disappear since I'm an illusion. Because illusions disappear. So she disappears. And all food on the planet disappears. Now it's true that everything's an illusion. But when we believe that we are the illusion of this body, we need food. And so all the devotees, even all the animals, started crying, pining with pangs of hunger. That mother, please, we're so hungry. I mean, we don't eat one meal, we get so hungry. And then Bhagwan Shivji sees so much suffering just from hunger. And he himself starts missing Mother Parvati. And Mother Parvati, hearing the prayers of all the devotees, comes in disguise and sets up a kitchen and starts cooking and starts feeding all the people. And so the description is that there's this line of devotees waiting to get their food from her. And Bhagwan Shivji stands in the line. And when he gets to the front of the line, he puts his hands out and bows his head to the mother of this universe. He is mother. He is father. He is everything. We pause here. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet, asato ma satgamaya. Om Purnamada Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hare Om Shri Gurubhyo.
Suryo Bhati Jagadaratam Nemavid